So what we are doing here is in these great treatises, they have different subjects, emptiness, or also in the Lamrim Chima as well. In each the stage of the topic has different chapters. And so what we're doing, and also plus from the different treatises, what we're doing is really taking the essence of these and then instructing for our practical purposes. So like extracting the essential meaning from these Lamrim and other great treatises, and then going through them for our practical reasons.
남주차도 도나 좋아하는 것이 군두고 송거래서 배나 람름 먼저 람름로 럽종 제와나 람름 럽종 쟁에 대해 파신 럽종 제 창의적 자로 된 송샤요래 송도와.
As His Holiness mentioned before, that for the Lamrim practitioners or the student of the Lamrim, it seems that the Lamrim instruction is written for the people who already studied the great perfections, the paramitas.
다 가서 나고 쉬는 바 아니 이제 전부 세대 간제 아다 이제 전부 세대 다 가려서나 상제고 샘지 선배 이제들은 이제 전부라 그래서 야마나 안에 지기 동아래 좀더 그 이제들은 이제 전부라 그래서 데코 거지로.
And therefore, when we talk about the great compassion, this is basically compassion led by the Bodhicitta mind. And in another word, the great compassion is a compassion have a strong intention to save other sentient beings.
제가 다 단단 가두지는 이제 저라. 단단 가두지 이제도 아니 다 동아제 잔데가 이제로. 다 이제 좀 봐와도 그래서. 이제 좀 봐와서 그래. 근데 나도 이제라야 릭섬이었다. 가서 릭섬샤마. 다 대릭마로서. 근데 이제 전부 아니 이제 처음에 이제 잠보와 섬샤가 그래서. 제가 단단 가두지 이제도 이제 잠보와도 그래. 이제 잠보와서 때 가제 샘제 동아다 잔데가 논다고. 대야 차바다 레드기 좀 그래서.
차바다 대와.
차바다 레드기. 차바다 파 레드. hello.
And so the compassion that we have right now is just a simple compassion. There's another type of classification of compassion, which is great compassion, and then infinite compassion, and then it's just like a simple compassion, which is basically still associated with the desire. But still, you have a strong desire that sentient beings free from suffering.
이제 잠보 딱까지 이제 잠사지 거죠.
Just compassion. The third type is just compassion or simple compassion.
근데 이제 때 가서 차파단 대차단 돼요 그래.
And the third types of compassion is still influenced by attachment and desire.
가르스나 소속 가사텔라야 담보 동아리 탄다셔. 때시 마가나 때시 마데나 야텔라 콘도사요 차대요 그래서.
And for example, when you see someone you love is suffering, of course you feel so compassion toward him or her. But then when that person sometimes annoys you, at the same time you immediately get frustration with them.
맨날 가서 때 맨날 소소고 가오냐고 보고 단조 가데나 다 콘도 동아 마요나 그데 삼대거라 강이 마요나 삼대거라 와서 얘나 때서 말에나 야 콘도 두바 쇼로도
Just like attitude, our attitude toward our children, and we always wish them happiness, and we always wish them to be free from suffering. But then sometimes when they annoy you, you immediately get a very reactive emotion to them, like anger and so on. And this is simple fact or the common sense for all of us. Do you get the same experience?
into the Raja to Jala
and the infinite, excuse me, the infinite compassion is basically our compassion to all sentient beings. There's no limit to whom our compassion is applied. And this type of compassion is common also among the hearers and the self-liberators. And this type of compassion is mainly a desire that the sentient beings be free from suffering.
다 니제 첨부사야 돼. 다 좀더 니제들. 다때 태워 첨부고 안에 강사 야나 태워 첨부고 르세생이 강사부터 요 말에.
So great compassion is exclusive to the Mahayana practitioners. And this is like a compassion where you take the responsibility, or you really shoulder for the liberation of the sentient beings from samsara. So you have the strong resolve to freedom from samsara.
다 텐데게 니제 대변나 샹잡고 샘티알라 되는 니제도 고요레스.
And you need this type of compassion to generate awakening mind, the bodhicitta.
텐데게 샹잡 샘바데 돈요 또바 대야 아니 샹잡 되는 샘도 고요레스.
So for that purpose, in order to realize emptiness, you still need this great compassion.
제자 니제 샘다 이샘 메필로 샹잡 샘의 야세남지죠. 가로. 이제선 있으면 별로. 자세 샤접 선바 차야기 제때 이제지 샤접을 선 돈주도 샤라 숨되는 것도 납 그래서.
As mentioned in the sutra, that for the causes of awakening mind, you need great compassion, you need a bodhicitta mind, as well as emptiness.
Okay? 아니 대시당 지지. 다양하고 가도 지바 아니 줄라메베 이제 아니 섬절라메베 이제 미말라메베 이제 섬라야 바스.
And then another types or the classification of a great compassion is, as we discussed last night, which is like a great compassion aimed at the phenomena, great compassion aimed at the sentient beings, the great compassion aimed at non-objectifying, objectionless.
어제 제자 다 된데서 명화데 가르치는 체와나 그 세제 쪽이 잖아. 로 젬바지 그 세제 쪽로 젬바지 잖아. 네 고도니지 말아서 빠와래.
네 거면서
세제 나도 순서여와. conjoin the different mind.
네, 그래서
세제로 순셰로 젬바지 요와인자 디찬의 고도 니지 말아서 빠와라.
Why we have this type of classification of the great compassion is because we conjoin the great compassion with these different, such as the phenomena, the objectionless, and the impermanent, and so on.
제자다 어디 뜻도 주도 따다 하고서 당어도 곰제도 주삼당고 요다.
So this is how I hope you understood the meaning of a great compassion, and this is then how we put into meditation.
제자다 이제 전부 세대 당아도 섬절라야 아니 지금 동화지 동안 제외 동안 차와지 동안 섬도 와서 아니 대 텐데 강르질라 메네 동화다 차와 자나 점으로 삼바다 많이 봐지 동화다 차와 나라라게 제기 있으면 학습 내용에 텐데 이제라 이제 전부스 텐데다 다 샤접 셈베게 샤접 셈고죠 다다 차대요래.
And therefore, when we really meditate the nature of the suffering, for example, the sufferings of the sufferings of change, the sufferings of pervasive conditioning, and so on, by meditating on this, the nature of the suffering among the sentient beings, the important, I think, criteria is that we really kind of have the resolve to free the sentient beings from the samsara. With this kind of approach, then it's become the causes for awakening mind.
제가 늦어 거때 지금 람람도 로나 양테스 지금도 파 잠내시라 수루로 제도 말 직바치벌 안 잠잠 군두고 깔롭도 손에 티나다 도도도도도도로 도갑되고 되요래.
So if you read, from Lamrim, try to get something about the great compassion, it's going to be really hard because it's scattered all over the places and it's really difficult to bring them together. So I found that His Holiness, the books written by His Holiness, very concise and focus on certain topics, such as great compassion.
단다 샘지 시대시야 샘지 시대나라 두주 걸 곰타데 답 대오치 뉴뉴치 되는 요래.
There are many works of His Holiness. So one of them is the Mind of a Peace, or the Peaceful Mind. And that's the title of the book, and in which he instructs how to generate a peaceful mind or calm mind.
Okay. If
we read the Madhyamaka Avatara, we wouldn't be able to get so much out of it.
Okay.
So in terms of really meditating this through the systematic steps, it's still same as the 7 causes and effect meditation on the bodhicitta, where we first identify all sentient beings, our mother, think about their kindness, and think about how we're going to pay back, and so on. These are the same. In Buddhist context, we often refer to mother sentient beings, or our mother. If you feel uncomfortable, or if that doesn't make a big difference in your feeling, emotion, then think about someone who is really dear and someone who is really kind to you. You can think of any person who is the most kind to you. And then think about another type of people, someone who you disagree, someone who do not, to whom you really do not share your views and so on, or someone you really don't like. So think of that type of person.
And then
the next is we think about neutral people who we don't have a particular emotions, either fondness or dislike. So you contemplate 3 different types of people. One is like someone who you really love, to whom you have incredible debt. The next one is almost like your enemy, someone who you really resent and not so fond of. The third type of people is the neutral people, someone is a little bit indifferent to you. And then we meditate on the 3 types of suffering. First one is the sufferings of the suffering. Second is the sufferings of the change. And the third is the sufferings of pervasive conditioning. And then we have to meditate and think about these 3 different people and meditate the nature of the suffering. So the first one is more effective. Think about the sufferings of the suffering. To that, all these 3 types of people suffer. And so we're going to meditate on the nature of the suffering that applies to all these 3 different types of people. If you can, for example, meditate on the sufferings of the suffering to all of these, apply this to all these, like people you like, people you dislike, and people different to you, that's great. If not, you can choose one type of these people and try to really think about their suffering.
아니 쇼지 냐들 대만은 다 가서 리비아나 저 말에 야급들이야 아니 지금 말든 반에 빼 무슨 니가 총송었어 대대로 삼을 당다로
So you can meditate on the nature of the suffering that all sentient beings are going through. That's one meditation you can do. If you couldn't do that, and then think about, all people who are suffering from this COVID-19. And then you can also think about the recent bombing in Lebanon. Is it Lebanon or Libya? It's muted. Can you?
Lebanon.
Lebanon, yeah, Lebanon.
In Beirut.
In Beirut. Think about, that's really sad state of that condition and meditate on compassion. So you can choose any subject that you feel more effective for generating compassion.
Okay. 뭐야 도치나 곰 잡으러 와 도치나 살았다 와이나 아니 소소지 가살라 차비 차바다 당사라 담에 담화가 로테 때스 마슈 촌로레 테레 곰잡 삼바다면 차당을 로테 때슈 촌로레
If you apply your compassion to these three different types of people, and then by thinking the nature of the suffering that all of them go through, this really helps to reduce your attachment and reduce your hatred toward people.
대바테 소소텔 샘라테스 마슈 촌로체네 당원에 녜지 차당체다 노르두 샘벨로 지와이나 다시니 소소셈은 저거로
And having really had the reduced attachment and anger to these sentient beings. And then at one point, when you're thinking, wow, I made such a big mistake by having this, like a biased attitude to all the sentient beings. And from now on, I'm not going to be under the influence of this biased attitude toward the sentient beings. So this is where, your practice has become resultful.
어제 던지 삼로지 설설라 드리게 탐나 다 소소고 곰자와들 니바 용고에 따르다
So when you reach there, that means your meditation is working.
제 던지 레 마타와이나 가세 곰자와나 코 차살라 가디나 차도 다살라 가디나 다도 바 따니 위제 익샤와이나 코 곰데 따다 용고에 따르
And when you really didn't make any progress, regardless of your effort, you still having gone through this type of a meditation training, and you still have the same attitude, like a biased attitude, then that means, the meditation is not working on for you.
오다 두치나 검잡 삼로당도 삼로만보 땅 삼로만보 땅도 남백이 그냥 개왕 하셔도 땅땅치 아니 개와 토마메 땅다 텐데 만보고 다 텐데 삼로 코나야 버려 가서 많고 봤나 야치 semje tsama nga zola cham tenshi ta karo kadi chimbo mare mai ba nga zo ta dvje shara ragme ba da ya tisho ne sam ta da chi yong do.
So by really relying on this a lot of reasons that we studied before, you can apply the reasons of the concept about rebirth. Then you also, think about all the sentient beings, how kind they are to you. If not, at least when you are convinced that the sentient beings are not kind to you, that they are kind to you, and that they're not kind to you, when you reach there, that's also a little bit of achievement.
Okay. 오도 제거 다 드네 지네 지 삼마당 다 소소 삼제 참망군이 까디 첨보 연바 배나 담보 배나 가서 가죠 둥아데 자고와데 아니 단예 파마 카야 메바 텐데게 삼도 식초르도 갈라 아니 단단 제베 둥아라 아삼도다 아니 텔레스 자와던 아니 차와지 둥아라 삼도나 드네 당고네 이제 제다야 가로래 거다.
So we meditate on the compassion by really applying our compassion to all sentient beings, regardless of their relationship to you. Either they're kind or they're, like a resent or they're indifferent. Regardless of, your relationship or attitude to these different types of sentient beings, you still apply your compassion to them equally. And when you do that, and then you can move to the next meditation, which is the sufferings of change. And then after that, you can still, meditate on the pervasive conditioning by really applying your compassion to all these three types of sentient beings in relation to you.
경고도 아니 당원에 소소 삼라치 파 여바로 칠레네 아니 당원에 섬제 참아까지 침보르자 당에까지데 파 섭고도 선배 아니 지금 전전다 아니 준소 아니 영어 샴바사도 다 파르는 콜레양 거래.
Once you reach there where you're totally convinced that all the sentient beings are incredibly kind to you, and when you reach there, then the subsequent emotions such as really paying back their kindness, remembering their kindness, so on, they all come automatically to you.
다 된리기 영어 샴바체나 땅어도 이제 제와라 다 타니 원래 살았네.
Once then we get up to the new champadea disaba
chamba 바제 마치 전전 주소시 되네 다 제어도 만에 섬제 참아 가지 소소고 예동와 단예 참아 예동와 까리 첨보다 예동와 예동 먹으면 남바 치어메 가지 제신 보면 예동와 남바지 가지 토나면 담아 먹지 다 용샤기 왔다.
So once as you meditate on these different steps of this cause and effect meditation, such as remembering their kindness, the desire to pay back their kindness, so on, and eventually when you get this most loving, pleasant love love, when you get this really powerful love, unconditional love to all sentient beings, then we're not so far from attaining the bodhicitta mind.
근데 제가 갑라다 빼나 근데게 니제 아니 잠바테 니 첨보데 나도 jel라치나 다 나도 가르팽 그래서 다또 나도 제와테로 와 다티 가르팽 그래서 나도.
So what is the benefit of achieving this love, unconditional love, or the unbiased love to all sentient beings? What is the benefit of that?
당아도 제와치죠 데려와 당아도 때거는 나도 가르로 켜사라 그래서야지로.
So, what benefit do we gain from generating this unbiased love to all sentient beings?
제가 이제도 야 가로 비자당이라고 다 영어 샴바트 차대로 영어 샴바트.
So the love, this unconditional love, which really reinforces and pushes us to the getting the great compassion.
제 장가 great compassion 가리 잠바로와.
말에 닝지 이 참버되게 아니 저기 아주 닝질래야 비교하던 거 봐.
비자다 어디 비자다 거. 제 장가 다 들리기 샴바티 세디가 가리 파초베 가리 도와나 간지 옛도 공화지 뭐 옛도 막고 좀 통고에 말이야. 옛도 공화.
So that love, that love is like a feeling is true all sentient beings, regardless of their relation to you. When you have this most pleasant love to them.
다 텐디션을 다 미파초와들지 지도 간에 전화다 때 세야 돼. 나라는 그 탑이 제기 삼바지로 어떻게 하고 있든 이제 내려 그래서.
So when you have that love, then you feel I'm going to help these sentient beings and get all things done. Whatever they need, I'm going to give them. Whatever they help they need, I'm going to provide that help to them. When you have that love to sentient beings, and that means then you are also getting the compassion. 이걸 닝지 첨부를 말해. 닝지 첨부를 봐.
뭐 다시 잠배가 장에다 닝지 첨부를 봐. 아니
네 잠배 닝지 줘 봐.
나한테 오다때 닝지
첨부를 남는 주고 봐.
오다다는 닝지 첨부들 단단하도 랍데 닝지 첨부들 하는 거.
So that most unbiased love that you are able to establish to all sentient beings, and this also equals now great compassion. That love which have this strong feeling, I'm going to free them from suffering. Whatever they need, I'm going to provide that to them. And that love is also great compassion.
일라리 텐지 전부 다 데려봐. 제가 텐디기 로텐이 지어 갈라다 미파초웨기 가리무게 가르치나 수수고 야폰 도고래 뒤된다 깔래 가르잖아. 소소라 깡게 주는 요 말에.
And then when you are able to establish that type of really compassion to all sentient beings, then you will do anything for them, and you do not feel exhausted or you do not feel frustrated about it. And you have this mostly like a pleasant feeling when you do things for them.
소소근이 파초와라 대화 가지 강 고아데 그때도 그래. 소소 대대와라야 샘나 깡에데 리더 샘 깡에 주는 요 말에.
So when you engage in helping other sentient beings with this type of compassion, and you are able to help them, you are able to really give them what they need without any effort, without any tiredness, without any feeling tired.
어째 제자 아니 비가 공토다 셰다도 좋는 레그 말이었어.
At the same time, when you are engaged in helping those sentient beings, you wouldn't have an attachment or anger.
제가 때마다 소소한 시대 내가 미파초와의 시대에 오고.
As a result, you will be in a calm state, as well as the other sentient beings in this process.
땅에 지나서 빼셔가 지나서 다 미자자자 지나서 대냠노 자샤자요로 지나서 게 빼샤는 시작이 있어.
I'm going to give you an example, as most of you are householders. An example will be quite close to you.
지나서 빼나 다 다시 조모 다뭐 제외 지나서 다 이거 다시 뉴슈 접지 주고 갈 소소 강가라 다 조모 열었어 지나서.
So when you are in your 20s, I'm sure you had experiences of dating. I'm sure you have a boyfriend or girlfriend.
아니 되네다 소소 차다잡이 뭐이나.
Then after you get married,
다 차다잡네 빼나 다 노나 빼나 다와 가시지. 텔레마나 로 가시지라야. 다 소소 그 조가이나 깨면나 갑대 텔라야. 간지 옛도 오바 치치 옛도 먹으면 나봐 치는 통 말이야. 강가 가래 쳐봐나 계제 셔봐야나 남주 땜봐야나. 가르치는 야포 짜야 도대 그랬어. 디가 야폰 통화들 때네 아니 소소jel라 콜라 공tro다 셰다다 되는 용거 말했어. 콜라 마가비 로도 주는 개가 말했어. 대 가르치는 소소jel라 때라 가로 다 지금 옛동화 슌통화 되기까지 열어. 그때 물자셔.
I'm sorry for the background noise. There's a kid playing in front of my house. I'm going to close the door.
That's good. We are going meditation. What are you doing? You can just complain.
Having married to that lover, boyfriend or girlfriend, and then initially you really see them wonderful. It's either your husband or your wife. You see them wonderful. Whatever they do, you would like them. And at the time, you wouldn't have so much frustration or anger at them. And do you have this kind of experience?
가르치는 수수 때 옛동안 쉬운 통과나 옛도 먹어 치는 통과 옛동안 때 슈기 슈체서마다 수기를 달라지 막아면 삼재고 말was.
When you see them wonderful, when you see them amazing, and at the same time you wouldn't see them like negatively, because 근데 그래서는 이도와 This is because when you see them, positively, it automatically blocks the negative feeling toward them. So the true feelings cannot happen spontaneously.
다 된디 시점마다 다 대 샴바 대게 영어 샴바 대주지 다 미파초들 가리먹고 가리고나 다 녜트게 자샤 잔장에트게서 생육심을 연구했어.
And when we are in that state of emotion, you feel, okay, I'm going to give them anything they need. I'll do anything for you. That type of emotion exists at the time. Do you have this experience? Have you experienced that? I'm sure, you already had this kind of experiences, and many people already reported this to me.
다 텐데데 뇨나 다와 카시시 텔레마나 로카시시 코타다 데그레스 테네코 예노로 와서 예노로.
So that type of emotion will last up to a couple of months. This wonderful emotion, and then after a few months it will disappear.
제가 예바이나 다 데코 가로서 착받은 제대로 대용거든. 착받은 데비 샴바인다.
This is because that type of positive emotion is still influenced by attachment.
배 대나지 거래. 다 가로서 근데 심지 참말함이 되는지 좋아했나? 공무원에서 대인바인자 아니 코 마두르바 야슈 쳇쳇쳇쳇로서 봐.
So unlike this type of emotion, which is biased and under the influence of attachment, but when you generate this unconditional love to all sentient beings, instead of really that love is driven away by something else, it will reinforce itself, and your compassion, this unbiased compassion to all sentient beings, will grow continuously.
다 텐디지 레바나 아니 샘제 젤메네 차도다 공조다 나자께 말 대마제나 소소 기부 정서와.
When you are able to establish that type of unconditional love, then you will be free from jealousy and from anger. As a result, there is a peace in your mind.
대여와는 이제 소소 공조 마산 미파쳐발라야 고로서 코야 다 듣고 시대 안에 도.
And once you are in peace, it also have an impact on other people's mental state. They will also be in peace.
제당 안주 샘내야 잠바다 니제 전부 깨터와였나 소소 기본 마테 아니 미심바야 콜레 영화 시대 내도.
Therefore, the benefit of generating loving kindness and compassion is not only that you are able to generate peace in yourself, you will also be able to share this to other people, and they will also enjoy peace.
제가 근데 여기도 대처도 변화 담보 창사적 같은데 정서에 되게 중요해.
So, do you had the experiences that I mentioned before? Initially, you have this amazing, loving emotion to your spouses.
You got it?
As a reminder, I think, I do this too with all other translations. They really like it. This is like a Zoom and a digital telecommunication teaching, and the student need to be more expressive. Either you can shake your hand if you agree, or because sometimes the teacher wonders whether you're even listening. So can you be more expressive? I'm sorry if I'm doing too much. Senehe, just remind me if I'm, over. Okay.
Yeah. 제가 간지 다 딩 내 전화도 가려거나 간지 미 파초와도 예동와 전화도 얘라 예동와진 전화 나타와 옛나 텔라티네 콘로케 말했어. 텔라 가르치고는 가도 제도 버려야 되다.
So the important thing is when you are sitting so loving, so pleasant, and then this will really help you to generate the positive, attitudes toward them.
근데 인사를 근데도 전화도 상무다다. 전화도 소소 background 상무지 다다.
Do you agree? But really referring to your own experiences.
제가 다 땡아도 단다 차바된 데다가 로카시 다와 카시지는 코야 맨 아니 슈마냐 메티코 다차로 그러세요. 다창에 되는 용거.
When the emotion is under the influence of attachment and so on, then that emotion doesn't last very long. It also kind of turns the 100-degree.
제가 간도 소송 간도 하고만 간도 맞게와 성에도 간도 콘로데레스. 콘로데 맞게와 성에 또 맞게바 지보메바 성이 소지데 콘로데레.
So anger, on the other hand, is one of the main causes or the conditions that make us unhappy, that make us frustrated.
제가 미파초와라야 샴테 슈쳔보이나 콘로도 텔 콘로 메가 자로.
So when you have a very strong loving kindness or compassion toward other sentient beings, it also in turn helps you generate peace in your mind.
오케이, 다 대처는 내가 다 아니 이제 전부 곰네 팽에 가래요. 그래서 다 팽에 데려다.
So this is the benefit of practicing great compassion. In essence, by having this great compassion to others, you'll also generate this in yourself. That's the benefit.
대연배 뺄랭에다 나타나시면 샴바페는 소소고 조가 게임에 담보 두고배 갑라야 다 가르면 그 가래 제나이나 가지게 제 수르대 제도 그래. 대 가르지나 공로 사고 말이. 대 가르나 콜라야 샴테 가르 세바 슈치 뭐 되래 가지. 얘도 오심 통과로 와.
When you first met your spouses, you have this amazing, emotion. I will do anything for you. That's the most wonderful emotion. And when you have that, you'll be able to do a lot of things for them without feeling any exhaustion. Is that true? Can you share some of your thoughts?
맨날 lumba 소소 담파래. 나도 자가도 배나 담파에 말해. 샤쇼 버티 넘쇼 도모다 차다 잡셔. 대니 코니 소와 도모다 헬레가 말했어. 이는 내가 담보 자니 달셰 강가치나 당아니 가지 찍질라 속 동이냐 속 땅게 있어. 아니 루담에서 냠도 되게 있어. 저 용거를 봤어. 제가 뒤 샴바 가로 뒤 세워 슈좀 레게래.
So the relationship in America is different from that of Tibet. In Tibet, marriage is done through introduction by the parents or someone else. So you really didn't have so much emotion at the beginning. But in America, that you really screen your lovers really carefully. You go through a lot of tests. You go through a lot of reflection. So once you really meet them and establish a relationship, you have this amazing, powerful emotion at the beginning.
제가 간지 되게 까딜라 때문에 미파초가 melebe 차차나 깜로도.
로.
되게 다 소소 파초라 비 세바 예도 슈 통과자 미파초에게 지금 melebe 네거티브 가르나 나도 통과면 코 깜로도.
And so when you have these most positive emotions toward your spouses, it automatically blocks that unpleasant feeling to the same person.
다는 이제 되게 슉 되게 슉 첨보여만자 아니 파쇼와도 가르치는 게 제도도 와.
When you have such powerful emotions to them, you will be able to do a lot of things for them.
오케이. 대도 찍바 찍잖아도 당가도 잠바 검사니 잠바 니제 검사야 돼.
So this is also in principle exactly the same when we practice great compassion. When we feel great compassion to all sentient beings, we will also be able to do anything for the sentient being without feeling any exhaustion or tired.
제가 도전에 잠바 앞에는 semje 사마치 제시 예동고 나바지 수수자 로로 샤와 영화이다. 디지 다라라야. 텐티게 semje 사마 둥아다 타바다 나라라가 제고군도 삼베가 아니 이제 저보다 kop헛가 깨운 거래.
When you are able to establish this most loving and powerful emotion to all sentient beings, and when you're able to establish that, then at the same time you get this dissolve that I'll do anything for these sentient beings to be free from suffering. So that comes automatically.
에제바다 다 오늘 다나가 제도는 간 제도고문도 다 가져가 상제 도고도 아니 이제 샤죽 선다 차는 거다.
And then when you feel that you wanted to free all sentient beings from suffering, and then you realize that you are not in condition or have the capacity to do that now, and then saying, okay, only when I am get enlightened, then I'll be able to help these sentient beings. And with that, you get dissolved to attain full enlightenment for the benefit of the sentient beings. And that's called the bodhicitta mind.
다텐 로도 하고서 다 조응이 나니 나도 데리 가르고 한다. 가다 나도 저와 데려와. 이제 전부 가리고 거래. 되게 가리 팽그래서 데려와다 소데.
So this answered all the questions that we have for the first session. What is great compassion? What is the benefit of great compassion? And how do we practice great compassion? So that answered all of these questions.
제자이나 다 텐데데 나도 단답에 소소 샘랑감라 라데베가 텐데 곰토고 말해. 딩나도 텐데 토고 말해.
When we are under stress, we will not be able to do this kind of practices.
아니 샘발헬레 이베칼 남주네 대 선을 장야니 곰잡 삼로당 텐데 샤려온 거다.
When we are in a peaceful state, when we are calm, then if we rely on meditation and going over this meditation again and again, and then we will be able to generate this true compassion.
대단 레바 제고도 나도 가리나 받은 레바 제나고 레바 탐탐탐 용도 왔어.
So it's very important that we really connect, incorporate these different, subjects, different aspects of the practices, and really integrate them.
다양하게 차라도 옆에서 당에 빼도 샤다가 되면 차라도 빼는 미자 포모에다 텐데 때서 냠뇨 여와다 빼트리 샤결다세.
I'm going to give you another example. This is because you guys are householders, and so there are a lot of experiences that may be applicable to many other people.
근데 차라도 다 담보 다 다다가서 마셔야 놓치 못 하더라 간지. 뭐 포사 모사가 소소 미치 나와 들어와이나. 안 담보 나와래. 아니 될야 양주 믹다. 근데 계제시 아니 믹다. 아니 콜 가르 아니 담담다 아니 소소 파 냠도 차로도.
So when we initially meet someone, we, if you like someone, and then you start seeing a lot of positive things about that person, and when you look at them, they look so wonderful and beautiful, and that's really then continuously build our attachment to them, and you become closer and closer to them.
제자 아니 그 테마 친구들 많고 그 저한테 캠에는 코디 잡아들 내가 말해. 다 코디 수수 담담담담라나 코 아니 코디 다 점점도 고통형도 봐.
So if you only see them once, maybe your attachment to them wouldn't be that great. But when you see them regularly, and then when you really engage with them frequently, then your attachment also grows with that.
대대 집아 당경가도 질라인 봤다. 소소라 가지 까딘 최초 섬제된 된다로 설명다. 대동아 대락강에 마요와쇼 동아 트라버쇼 트라방가랑 그 제에서 담보던 가도 소화게 내가 말해. 땡데 내가 말해. 이나 대세 삼노다 곰잡 니마 딱봐 좀 땡데게 됐지 고 이봐 용고사래.
So likewise, if we really think about the nature of the suffering among the sentient beings, think about how kind they are to us. and then you think about how we wish that they be free from suffering, and then thinking, I will actually do that. I will free them from suffering. If you meditate that regularly, initially, if you just do meditation for a few times, it wouldn't have that great effect on you. But if you really do regular meditations on that, then this will really have a huge impact on you later. So this is just an example, and we're going to do meditation based on this type of experience.
다처럼 소소고 좋아 곰나 소소 깨매 곰나 소소 바늘 가리 곰나 곰 간지 소소를 까디 제조 소소를 샘단 예쇼 샘지도 못 삼다 줘 선별.
So
소소를 치다 심이 가려나 간지 소소 샘단 예쇼 샘진데.
I want you to really visualize or think about a person who is the most dear to you. Even you can think about your pet. Regardless of the person, the most important thing is how really kind they are to you.
다 된지 대라야 아니 지 센들라 게 차다 리라 나타 샘라 동가 된지 강에 가야 마요 쇼섬 다 된지 삼고레스.
Once you think about that person and his or her kindness to you, then think about their kindness to you, and think about how you really wanted them to be free from suffering.
뭐다 두진 대삼로 지삼로다 삼로다 단단가도 샘을 좋게 내가 말이나 갈래 삼로다 삼로 양조네 샘주 쳇쳇 용 것으로 와.
So when you do this like a few times, initially you wouldn't feel so much, but as you continue that practice, eventually you will get very powerful emotion.
Okay? 어두시 곰자게다 곰 저도 곰대 선불시부도 맞아맞아 저도 네빠 치보여서 곰 잡타나.
So we're going to do meditation on that, and don't think this is just like a simple meditation or too simple for you, but it is really profound practice. Once we're really able to gain the experiences on this subject, then that the result will be very powerful.
Okay. 뭐야 다 도체는 곰자고 그러다 근데 곰자나 단등에 라이바 간지 수수질라야 공조다 셰다서 라슈고 라노 그래 아 되게 무체샤 good.
So this is how you practice meditation on great compassion, and once you're able to create this unbiased love and compassion to all sentient beings, the benefit is that you will be also free from attachment and hatred and so on.
제가 가서 공로서 마치 미마저 아니 잘라라셔 사금 말이다. 잘란 삼성사 마치 사금 말어.
This is wonderful because most of the time we feel frustrated and angry at people, but not at object.
제한테 밑에 소소 예 동화지 제토와였나? 안텔라 콘도 사고말. 콘도 맞나 소소 집어쳐 말해. 대전에 소소 집어쳐나 소소 깨지는 미파쳐 war라야 너와지 용거 말해.
Once you're able to establish this unconditional love to all sentient beings, then you will be free from hatred, right? And at the same time, you will be able to influence these people, to be in peaceful state. So that's a benefit.
Okay? Yes. Sene?
Krishna, I have this question because I understand, the benefit and the theory, but in practice, like in my heart, I feel like my mother is so special, or my, sister is so special to me, or my brother. It's hard to see them the same as everybody else, like especially like my parents.
What means that?
디스무도 공개 지단징을 안조 이용의 전부 관계백급이야. 이 수수 니 아마다 니 빙가 부다 범어도 주관이 빙가도 주관을 삼다는 단투부도스. 그저 그 린침으로 봐. 이 임을 때에다 혼절이야 이용 삼게다 전부게도 레하부도스. 이는디 아니 미시험벌이야 수수지기 빙가도 파면 뭐임벌이야. 다지 이게야려 데스칼레도스.
제가 다 담보 소소 파마데 빙자라게. 근데 갈래까지 텔라 슈첨보지 네바도 녀다 아니 섬지 샴발라 갖고 그랬어.
So, as mentioned in the instruction, first you practice this with your beloved one, such as your parents and brothers and sisters. And once you're able to establish that type of unbiased feeling to them, and then you move your object from, the focus from your relatives to others.
디나네 저 소소 레와용이 받나 소소 레와용이 받나 레카 재산으로 소소 내번으로 가지 소소 레와용이지.
And then maybe it's important still practice this with someone who you have some kind of a relationship, such as your colleagues and so on.
제가 콘솔까지 고매여라 가지 쿠주까지 진행하도 단다 소통을 매까지는 스치라 맞대는 가도 수진 소통 말와.
So yes, they are still very kind to us. We owe them a great deal. This is because we as a human being cannot survive without relying on others. We cannot really survive solitude.
근데 단다처럼 니요 되게 니요 대사 캄바트 미셴박 소조리 저랑 사대 칼라 강가 미셴박 키오조리 저랑 뉴욕 무도에 소소 칼리자베 인지 땅가서 삼거와 얘나야 미치게 레가테조 두 전에야 만돌아 지까지 카야산으로 오시 야보요데스.
So a great deal of reasons to think about others' kindness in our life. For example, for Snehe, you live in New York and you live in a house or apartment that's built by others, and you're eating meals that's prepared by others. You have money to spend on these items. That money is also come through your job or some kind of a business. And that job or business is actually help you or in conjunction with somebody else's contribution. So if you think about, how kind they are, that, principle can be applied to all sentient beings. So we start with a small, kindness, and then we just build them gradually.
제가 다 빼셔나라 두신 대시자 다 땡아도 다 되긴 레오 토말라 땅아도 곰자 다라 대 제바게 개요 말다데.
So this is exactly mentioned in the scripture, and what's important for us is put this into practices. We meditate on them.
제가 나도 곰 맞아 곰 잡는 때다 전에 통교에서까지 전에 용교에서래.
So meditation is very powerful. When you meditate, there will be result for you. You will feel that result.
Okay.
Yeah, I think where I'm stuck is I feel like I cannot bring my love for other people up to the love like I have for my mother. So I almost have to bring my mother's love down to make it equal to my feeling for other people.
You have to bring up that everyone to
Yeah.
sense the mother. Don't bring mother down.
I know.
Like example, the mother's very kindness, because I like mother. The same as also all mother sentient beings. You can think like this is like Buddhism way of past, future. You know, yeah, you have to put. Don't bring mother down. You have to bring other up down. Okay. 제가 어두치다 가지 나가도 내가 지우도 곰 잡고 왔어. 대다 다 되게 샴바다 이제 수치면 나도 제가 콩로도 봐 매와 차는거도 콩로 매와 차는 것도 다 득사다.
So this is how we really meditate and create a change in ourselves. And one of the benefit of doing the meditation on great compassion is it helps us to reduce our anger and frustration. And that's a lot of benefit.
제가도 가지나 초보 책을 나도 초보 조모 소선 제가 밑 삼아 책을 출판로 물론 제가 전 초보 책으로 와서 미야시. 아니 콩조고 초보가 매워서 제가 그래서.
We're always looking for friends, right? And anger actually pushes friends away from us.
그래서 아니 초보가 뭐다면 콩조가 뭐다면 버는 제가 파 타리는 다샤가 그래서.
And anger really creates a gap in between communities and people.
다 나지고 콩조가 어느 수수 나도 가든다 땅아 수보도 되고 고도 할때 고도 콩조가 수보도 할때 매워서 제가 그래.
And we're always looking for healthiness. And then at the same time, we must realize that anger and frustration affect our health.
그래서 나 콩조선에 가도 자식 봐요도 자식 봐는 해를 작도.
The anger and the stress, frustration increases our blood pressure. And this eventually leads to heart attack.
제도 돼. 다 나지고 콩조사는 아니 지금 수수 전반 냠도 전반 제도 그래.
When you're in constant stress and anger, it also have effect on your memory, your capacity for memory.
아니 샘투네 아니 수수 내가 몸을 노도도.
And it creates a lot of conflict and confusions in your mind. And as a result, it leads to a lot of mistakes and accidents. Is that the case for you?
되지 다 나중에 별이 니마치라 소수 자샤자 내가 야부시 세워나 콩로지 세워나 자샤 섬지도 매워서 자 그래.
If you done a wonderful job during a day, and then anger at the end of that destroys, about 30% of it.
다네 콩로선나 빼나 레그 빼나 싸다 룬도 좀 추근에 아니 미드도 주는 게마도 마다와치 고차로다 간다.
And when you're in a constant frustration and anger, it also have an effect on your body, including like chakras and drops and wind and so on. And it really makes you unrecognizable.
대체와 정말 아니 수준 고유라에 미참아고 라슈고 무슨 그 말하나 라슈 저랑게 남gel할 때는 미강가 그 맞지와 차로 그래.
When you're in this kind of a confused and angry status, it also have an impact on the people around you. The surrounding people will have a negative impact from your kind of angry and stressful status.
그래도 다 땡아도 때서 째검쳐야 돼. 당아도 까마까지 곰작인다스.
And therefore, we're going to do a few minutes of analytical meditation.
그래서 나도 랍전에 줘도 오다 데레 삼대 그래. 그 샘나 나도 용화시라 용 말았대. 샘나 아 내가도 뭔데 데레도 와지 섬 용화는 아니 나도 데라 까야 답지 그래 와.
And if we just talk, we get a bit of a kind of understanding and knowledge about it, but we wouldn't really have this deeper level of experience. So when you meditate, that really give us this much deeper level of experience.
제가 단단해라베다 소소 콘롤라나 소소에나 소소 조폴란다고. 미 셴바에나 소소에 텔레냠도 존데 마도. 근데 용어도 베들마 담보가도 째검책이다. 째검식.
So first we're going to do analytical meditation. That 제금디 양계도
고주가 님이 다능하니 대한 레시자이 봐. 레시제도 따따 레는 지나서 삼다시 왔어.
So I want you to really do analytical meditation, but think about all the faults of the anger I just mentioned. I want you to really analyze to see whether this is the case or not.
Okay. 지나서 고로사용해지러 왔어.
I'm sure you at some point you had experience of getting angry.
제가 근데 대감도 가르가르 주어서 왔어. 되게 가르가르 연구도 왔어.
So I want you to really reflect on that, say what happens when you're angry.
Okay?
And really observe, or remember what really happened.
Okay. Yeah. If too long, then you get fall asleep.
So did you get some level of understanding? Usually when we think about anger, we feel like it's a defensive. It's giving you some kind of a comfort. But in reality, this is a mistaken. Once you're under the influence of anger, it really creates a turmoil in our mind.
Okay, what you guys think? Any questions? Otherwise, I'm talking again, like, say, or say, repeat, then nothing much to make sense. Any questions? We can discussion, then make more clear. Yes?
So I feel if I don't manifest my compassion and my love to somebody, to those I love, the people that are close to me, I feel like I'm not effective. I have it's like what Snehi was saying. I think that I have no problem having compassion for people that I am not close with. And I feel satisfied that I am giving them compassion. For the people that I am close to, I feel like I want them to know I'm there for them and I am compassionate and I love them. So I overdo it.
가르쳐?
지단지 그랑기 다지 니는 뭐 미스네 여러봐. 안도졸리아 다 닝직다 참버 여러봐. 디샤베 겁리아. 아니 콘솔리아다 참버다 닝직geb이는. 다소소 딜을 바고 집어치기로 봐. 소소다 년龄요가 멤버체는 콘솔리아 참바다 닝지기도 양자 콘솔리아 소소 참바다 닝지기고 전국 당국도 멤버는 로데범도 미도들 언어라는 닝지유다 언어라는 참바유다 근데 지금 전국 단위라고 좀 맞춰는 로데범도 hi Judy so I'm going to repeat the question. You're saying that when you, of course, manifest, compassion to those you kind of people around you, have some relationship, it's fun. But those people who you didn't have a relationship, but you still have a compassion to them, you feel like you have to remind them that you have that attitude.
The opposite people. Opposite. So for those who I am neutral, I feel I am given compassion and I feel I don't feel tired. It works. When I do it with the people that are near to me, I want them to know that they are loved. And it is tiring because the attachment or my nervousness that I want them to know that I have compassion.
기실라 제가 공디서래. 지단지기 미 바바도돌이야 님벌이야 또 콘돌이야 팬다다 좋아지야도 돌이야. 콘돌이야 지금 소소 닝지다 셈상고지도 가지고 내가 치는 깔에 그거 민도스. 다 있는 지금 소소가 년년이고다 도돌이야 지금 팬다 좋아지도 잠바 지금 가서로 콘돌이야 내가 근데 지금 요다 지금 러바쇼도라 콘솔 님버디 지도 잠바 지금 깔에 많도 수순이 년년이고도 돌이야 더버주비야도 돌이야 두배급에 깔에 됐도
대 지금 저기 말 대체랑 그걸 로바잖아 그도 알안 투야 투지체 라마송 삼고요레스 소소 지테라
there's something didn't something wasn't right. This is because you maybe have an expectation from them.
Yeah.
And maybe you have a little bit of expectation. That's why it's a
big expectation.
제가 소소라 대 같이 내가 가르쳤나 제가 바로 봐잖아 텔 expectation 맞잖아 야슈레스.
So whoever you deal with, it's best that you don't have or don't put any expectation from them.
간에 텔 레바 잡나 소소 레바 마다나 소소 코로사가 아니 그거 없이 그래서.
So when you don't, put up any expectation, regardless what you do for them, you still are in a joyful state.
제가 내가 가르치는 남지 되게 나도 빼 놓을 때 대랑 나도 지대 지진 안 하고 그러고.
So the expectation is the biggest mistake when we, engage certain in activities, because this also, falls under the 8 worldly dharmas.
제가 남주 가디나 가도 내 파지 제나 아니 콘두고 갈때 가세체나 출래야 가로 다티 남주 때 마소서 가도 때 마가바 찬도 그래 대체네 소중은에 제알뭐 파죠 뭐 알아다에 제나 그 가를 봐서 나도 대체다 소수 semba yapoyo chidema pachu mo rata chida marwa.
So when we do without putting up any expectation, and then this is like a correct way, because you do things not for the purpose of gaining something back from them, but you really do things from your part in true altruistic manner and without any expectation. And when you do that, then you get less hurt when they don't repay back.
제가 안에 그냥 안주고 대치대 미젬발라 안에 가고 레바 잡다나 나도 가디나 용고 말해.
So when we put expectations on others, we wouldn't be able to accomplish anything.
제가
yeah.
대패는 거 차도 다수는 차도 레가지 차지. 근데 semlaya 답배 자신은 근데 차나도 즉 배네 직 소소고 삼도지 세지. 다대 계실라 가고 이제 해처럼 semlate 삼같이. 내 미세게 대 돈을 맞는 저 sem바 맞지와 저 도사래.
For example, let's say you say something thinking that this will please Geshe, but if Geshe didn't respond properly, then you will feel frustrated.
제가 대셔도까지 소수고 담을 해와 잡도 되더라고.
This is because you already created an expectation to start with.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, George.
So I have great expectation, Geshe.
What?
So thank you so much for your teaching. It's been very helpful. Now, what I realize, and I would like a little confirmation here, clarification, is that we very often confuse compassion and loving kindness. We use them very often one instead of the other, but they are separate. And the way I see it, and I would like confirmation of that, is that in relationship to the four immeasurable, I feel that compassion is actually equal to may all sentient being be free from suffering and all, be free from suffering and the causes of suffering from body and mind. That would be compassion. While loving kindness would be to may all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. Am I correct to think that way?
결국도 왜
직전하다 다 세워시다 공연을 오셔서.
공개 디스도 다 단데 다른데 기실라 디가 숨디가 배편도 중순스 이 인도잠바 대야 기실라 그린치 쉬어다 대야 다는 남들이 참바다 닝지 파슬라야 대 세브소고도 그런 데는 삼적 좀 참바다 닝지디 인지는 약간 양성양스 loving kindness compassion 다 배주단데 봐. 근데 삼지부터 뭐 니니 추전이다 삼지부터 니 지구면서 선거도스 당만도 남규직이 재미 시삼로단 백업이야 닝지스니에 디리샤스다 심자탐제 동해의 태워쇼스야 닝지입니다.
야.
참버스니에 심자탐제 대화다 대화 규다 데모쇼스니에 참버입니다. This is best.
다르.
Yes, this is exactly the case. You got it.
잠바 세야데 대화다 담버 대화 되나 가리야 본도 대화 담방 알아 체고도 우선들 잠바스.
Compassion, loving kindness, as you mentioned, is like you wanted the sentient beings to be happy and to be in the causes of happiness.
다데 니제데 칼로자서 와 아니 대화요가 아니 딱 갑자기 마요치게 둥하더라 와. 다 둥하다 타나 쯤마로 둥하다 타방 알아 체고도 니제.
So the compassion is the opposite, not like being in a joyful or happiness, but may they be free from suffering, and may I be able to free them from suffering.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for confirming what I thought. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? If you have some questions, good, then we can more discussion. Otherwise, I'm talking, maybe you don't get anything. Yes.
Thank you for teaching, and thank you, Tenzin, for translating.
Hi.
I guess I have a question about, so if most of our experiences, or most of the conventional experiences of compassion or loving kindness are in the nature of attachment, I guess sometimes what if we have some sort of resistance to those experiences because our experiences of it have been limited? And how can we go to the practice, wanting to go to the practice and to be inspired to choose this meditation over some other meditation and not just view it as like medicine that's good for us, Yeah.
기실라 아니 디 기실라 손주 디게 남도 도지 펜더시라도 송도 저는 병만도 지금 참보다 닝지스야도 지단다 지금 투무원이야 the conventional somebody disorder다 군소부원이야 통일을 봤어 이 인도점바 다시 지단가라도 심젤이야 최도 마데베톤에 지금 참보다 닝지스야도 줄이야 전투 쉽지 유럽체 이내령 아주 지금 소설이야 단대 디치야 뉴비시라 메디점바 침모투트의 용도도 왔어 네 지금 소설지 관계 정원에 지금 카요라기 심젤에 팬더니 두두들에 이내리야 좀지부터 강해다 된대 지금 거기만 거 체고도
나
아니 네 근데서 돈이 쇼래스
다때 지나라야 된 건데 내가도 참말을 요랬어 달라 아니 시당 운이가 강해 되게 이때는 소소고 땅가로 가로 레로 오잖아요 대용 거랬어 아니 삼점 소소 다 된데도 내 치아 말 같이 도고 말 소소도 마야마 ane jil karo danyala nyembele lo tene yong yo re.
So absolutely, what you just brought here in the discussion is true to many people, and it's also a challenge to really put this compassion and loving kindness in action. There are many reasons and causes for not being able to fully realizing our potentials for compassion and loving kindness. There are many reasons. One of the most, I think, obvious one is laziness. We simply are too lazy to put this into action.
ane shembachide ta tena kusu jilu bele lo ko wa ma danyala nyembele lo ngado che thogo mara nga che thoya ra rem de susu te chen matsene sha sha ji wa.
And then the second thing is really by undermining our capacity, saying I cannot do that.
제가 때 많이 봤지. 먼저 너도 냠내 체세야 돼. 소소 판 런이 체고 되는 말이야. 소소가 이제 샘을 썸을 따더라고. 샴바 이제 검 소소 샘을 썸을 따. 이제는 로봇 체세면 인지미지 판 런을 계속 하는 말이야.
And so when we initially do the practices, we're not thinking about going out and help there immediately. But first, we're really cultivating this kind of in our mind by relying on meditation.
다나 지금 나도 제가 로봇에 섬여질 로봇에 된 남중 뭐 놀거도 왔어. 제가 수수기 깨지는 미젠바 코로사 맞으나 제가 로봇 제사 버려. 됨 sembaки 고 말해.
So when we talk about helping others, it's also really very important that do not harm them because of our shortcomings.
대체나 아니 제발 내었지 말해. 대 맞으나 제발 펜토사 버려. 간다 제발 코로사요 말어. 수수 깨지.
So when we are able to stop, really creating problems for others, such as putting them in frustration, by really stopping that itself is really indirectly helping them.
아니 수수가 셈바데 그냥 보지 데이터와이나 수수는 공유에 미타마 셈바를 이용 그래. 대체나 수수 셈바 제는 펜토 제사 버려.
And when you're able to establish, like a peace in your mind, and at the same time, you're able to create peace in others as well. When you're in a peaceful state, that this also have a positive impact on others as well.
Okay. 다 지금에 뭐라 찾아자야나 맨나 아면 나도 배워도 배다. 나기 아마데 배 아마 여러분나 남이 찾아 배 시대여와 남에데 차르로 나요다 봐야 말이지.
So I'm sure I'm not sure whether you are married or not, but in a family, when the mother is in a peaceful state of mind, it also have a positive effect on the remaining family members.
세상에도 배벨 우소테레 남에데 여러분 요도면 아마들라 발라 자식 굽지도 않을라 봐요.
And so for the Tibetan the families, we usually believe the mother holds the most important role regarding the mental state of the remaining family members.
제가 나라야 단다다 나기 아마한테 야보지와나 침세도 침세에 많아. 침세 부기는 참아 미타된 코르데거든 거.
When you have a strong, solid, loving mother in a house, it brings a lot of people together, including your neighbors, the children of the neighbors, and the community members. They really come to you.
제가 제가 편도 제세대 제가 판론이 지키셔야입니다. 소수 셈바데 내차 셔던 콘주고 제원 맞아라 대와이나 다랑 제가 편도 제사버려.
So helping others doesn't mean that you go out and reach them. Helping others, really, you transform yourself. When you're able to transform yourself in a peaceful manner, it also have an impact on others as well. And that itself is really helping others.
제가 소소란 제게 다 미셈자가 될어야 간지 되게 단 잠도 나도 가지 가로 세만 쭉 쇼르거 와다이나 다 가지 삼체 투네치까지 다 세만 쭉 가는 쭉 마셔라 쳐야돼 젬페 다 쳐야돼.
And once you're able to refrain yourself from getting negative emotions, once you're able to really control the influences of afflictions, that actually itself helped and reached to so many other people.
Okay? 제가 강조드린 용어도 밑배나 밑정화 예시 요나 pena nami chila pena tapi pinja pena chu changa ji wa ina thina ne mitsama lolo yamba chi ta michi de khoro sawo je na mitsama kholena te sama ma ji wa charo 제가 그 내치다로
So when you have a large family members, such as among the Tibetans, say 15 family members in a house,
알레
So when you have, large family members, and then, well, all the majority of people are, in a peaceful manner. And then if there's one, emotionally disturbed householders and members, it will have a huge negative influence and impact to the remainder of the family members.
지난해 가서 때문에 간에다 주보 차당에 나지 sem거나 의세가 범해라야 아니 남이 대치 가래 시대 영화가 니파 슈체가 제가 범이잖아.
So among these, like family members, for the female members, they have a much more important role to play regarding the impact on other members.
제가 단다 군두고 송다 군두고 변나 샴테 담보등이 아마서는 자와 예스 송거다 나 빼자 개개선을 넘어서 아마서는 자소 송도.
And His Holiness mentions that he really encountered the first compassion and the loving kindness. He learned that from his mother.
제자 다 저랑이 저와라 도도라 달래 포임하고 막 간다 제대 파런이 직체가 계셔 말이야. 나제 도금은 섬유 차이 말이야. 소소는 소소 셈바데 유모 도성의 영화 맞아봐지. 소소 깨지는 메젬바 아니 유모 도 코로 라마치와 다른 팬도 제대 델하고 말이야.
So I'm not sure whether I have or I managed to answer your questions, but the most important thing is first we really transform ourselves, and by doing so, it will have a positive impact on others.
Okay? 제가 샘슈까지는 차야 말씀하고 샘슈에서 뽑아고 그러와.
So we shouldn't really feel discouraged, and we need the confidence to really make our practice successful.
나도 배벨로서라 롱압주 다 랑압주 두시는 랑압절에는 다들 로종 제마제마 다 경고차달라 그래. 대소 때빼 노르대 그래.
The Tibetans have attitude saying once you're in the 50s and 60s, there's no need to study. You're too old. I think that's really mistaken.
제 상아 다 단대 갑라야 뭐 변나 로투 dunchu 자치와 로종 제가 가데 대 로종 제고도.
Here these days, there are people in their 70s and 80s still studying, and I think it's really, really important.
제장아도 사자 뺀다가 아니 님마를 특례 로종 제가 님마 자는 특자싱사데 매는 거도.
So the Sakya Pandita mentioned that we should really learn one new word per day, and once it's become 100 days, you have learned 100 new words. So it's really important that we accumulate this kind of knowledge.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other ideas? Yes, Sheila?
Comment that I find that it's just an observation that when I see other people suffering, even though I myself might be suffering, if I do something, some small thing to alleviate their suffering, I find that it reduces mine in consequence.
ni shambal ya ta chik tungen na ya rung de be ge ya kondul robo che je kuran du dungen de se ya pendo che bi na ngare nywan na ya an su su gyul ya dungen chung chung dos.
어떻게 된대 된로래.
Yes, this is exactly the case.
자, 대문에 된대 로래 변나. 대화는 수수직 파체와대 즉 가지 가지 쪼지는 체와는 수수절한테 용어 받충로 된대래.
And when you do, help elevate the sufferings of others with, this like a pure heart and delightfulness, this really have a positive effect on yourself.
Yes, Sheila?
I was wondering about expectations. I mean, I think I expect to meditate and study, and I expect maybe to have a calmer mind and a better understanding. So is that an expectation or is it something else?
대대 expectation 말아 다들 소소 그 가로 다 전대 걸려고 그러고 대 말해 대 expectation 말해 expectation 말해
That's not expectation. That's really a determination, I think.
expectation that 내 바직 제나 티 로바지 갈았다 가지 미지 직제그래 삼지로 와 대라고 그러고
So expectation is some kind of exchange that you expect from other people. By doing something for the other, you expect they'll return you something back.
제가 대가지 다 단단 간도 다 소소 골드로 싫어. 나 곰작은도 냠내 제근도 또 맞지.
What you mentioned is just like setting a goal. I wanted to do this, I wanted to accomplish that. So that's not expectation, but rather goal.
제가 간도 골드 고그래. 골 이제 고게로 와.
We need a goal.
골 맨날 그 내가 데고 좀에도 찬으로 와.
Without goals, we wouldn't really be able to establish any result.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? You guys no questions? Yeah, that 맨날 다 니지에 디콜에 저도 곰도 잡셔 와서.
So if you don't have any questions, please continue doing meditation on great compassion.
제가 니제 첨보대 샤적고 샘다 돈여도 사람이 야자와대 아니 샤적 삼도 니제 두거라 그랬어.
전주쌤다 돈이 돈이로 니지침을 야 두거랬어.
어디 두거랬어요.
The great compassion is very important. And this is because both the bodhicitta and wisdom emptiness, you need great compassion for these practices to become successful.
제가 던져 고대다 오만 주변에 송요래.
You can find all of this in the entrance to the middle way.
Okay. 제가 다 저도 하고서 다 니제 첨보대 간지 뭐 템나 떠도 수수진 해서.
So now, have you got a good understanding about great compassion? Good grasp about great compassion?
좀더 니제들다. 단독 니제다 말이야. 좀더 니제.
So great compassion in essence is to really desire to save other sentient beings, to liberate other sentient beings.
단단 간주jel라 요와 니제대 다 단독 니제다 말이야.
The compassion that we have is to, wish that sentient beings be free from sentient. It's like a wonderful wish. But the great compassion is that like you have the determination that you want to be the source to free them.
Okay, 다 되는 것도 곰되잖아. 다 great compassion 니제 곰이다.
So we're going to do some meditation on great compassion today.
아니 지나서 가래가 나타나 수수고 단대 강에 첨보도 쓰는 둥아 첨보도 되네 둥아지 지나서 가랬다 세마시나 되네 삼로지 다 되네 둥아데 트라바게 탑시데 나라는 제공도 삼에 되네 삼도 달라 다른 삼에 되고 그러다데.
So first, think about suffering, the nature of suffering. Then you feel that I wanted to eradicate that suffering by myself. And then you really place your mind on that state and continue your contemplation.
근데 둥아지 소소다는 통고래 못 찾고 그러더라.
First, you have to recognize a suffering. But this suffering is suffering of another person. First, to recognize or identify the sufferings of another person, and then generate the emotion. I wanted to free that suffering. I wanted to free sufferings from that person, and that determination. And then you stayed in the state of that emotion. So then you place your concentration on that thought. So when you're able to totally concentrate and focus on that single thought, it will block any other thoughts coming into your mind. But when you're not able to focus, when you lose focus on that single thought, then other emotions and thoughts will come to your mind. So pick up and case, or the nature of the suffering that a particular person going through, and then to generate the mind that you wanted to free that person from that suffering. So this is how we meditate on great compassion.
뭐야, 뭐다 두시 곰자거다. 다 이제 두시 곰고요.
So this is how we practice compassion.
근데 잠바 곰자서 다 대화다 대방하랑 친구도 두 삼고다.
When we practice on loving kindness, and then we place a thought on that the sentient beings be in happiness.
제가 영웅의 샴바한테 빼는 거. 영웅 샴바지로 째터와이나 아니 이제도 코다 강아슈를 내고.
Once you're able to establish the loving kindness, then great compassion will come naturally, subsequently.
제가 남중아도 전제명아 되게 담보 따님 공고요. 와서 따님이야 보고 공고로 와서.
In the 7 causes and effect mind training, the first thing is we established equalizing.
아니 봐. 따님 공단 담으라 뭐 보여요. 봐. 왜냐 삼제 참마 소설라 까지 채나 채님 안에 내가 지나 진행해 볼겁니다. 도시 겁니다. 직치. 야마 삼제 참마 소설라 참마 대반도 봐 친구 누가면도 봐 친구에 봐 대대 겁니다. 말하면 니도 와.
So when we practice creating this equanimity of all the sentient beings in their relationship to you, there are many reasons you can rely on. The first one is really think about that all sentient beings, regardless of your relationship to them, is equally kind to you. And all sentient beings, are on the other hand equally harmful to you. They equal. There's no differences between these individuals. The second thing limiting is that all sentient beings, regardless of their relationship to you, desire for happiness.
근데 대차단은 딱 가도 남배 지나다 마시세 찍어라 마시세 개발로 도마면도 개발로 도마면은 말을 잠깐만 다 챈데가 아마데까지 채워는 이제 정말까지 침보를 해서 마시 찍어도.
And then secondly, that you recognize all sentient beings are your mother.
아니 근데 아니 마시 째는 아니 대월라 아니 아메가 트렌드제 트렌드는 다 전례판 제거된 아니 마시 트렌드 주소 아니 영웅 샴바데 그 하나 방 째고다 다모도 템보주나 강가 째고.
And once you're able to establish that all sentient beings are your mother, and then you remember the kindness to you, how the mother nurtures her children. And once you're able to establish this, like first steps, then the subsequent steps will come naturally in terms of how you wanted to pay back the kindness, and how you really see them loving, and so on, will come naturally to you.
So
it's very important that the first, I think, steps, you make sure that you get the first steps correct. And once you're able to establish the first steps, and then the remainder will come naturally.
어제 제가 두 전에 다 삼로당 잠잠 되네 삼로 치다가 셈나지 아니 그런 조금 제대 되고 들어봤어. 야 조금 전에 셈는 추르고
No. So it's important that we repeat this meditation. We do this again and again. That's the inner secret. So sometimes when you do the meditation, you need to do analytical meditation. Then if you do too much analytical meditation, then it really creates disturbances in your mind. So you also need to rely on a single point concentration as well.
Okay. 제자 안에 두 전에 안에 곰 잡배나 니마를라 곰배나 까마카지 잡아이나 갈래까지 코로나 지금 전도지 통과했을 때.
So if you repeat this exercise, even for a few minutes every day, eventually you gain realization.
제가 알아서 배나 소소 아마도 부기 발란 제가 야보 얘나 부기대 아마 가디 동안 아마도 얘도 공화시까지 아마라 그 진세드 캐면까지 아마라 가고 싶지 원래 그래. 아니 아마라나 소소 부고라 빼 뜻와 싶지 뭐 랩되게 왔어.
And when you see a mother and her son or children, and when the relationship is really good, whenever the child sees the mother, it brings incredible joy to the children. The same way as when the mother sees that child, and she have this incredible, like a loving emotion toward that child. And so that comes naturally.
제가 텐디지 레바나타 텔레테네 아니 콘트롤당 셰다도 아니 강가 고가사다가지.
And once you're able to establish this kind of loving kindness toward each other, it automatically shuts down anger and frustration and jealousy.
제 대전에 땅아도 레레 차더니.
As a result, we're in a peaceful state of mind.
대전에는 가도 깜바 남지 않는 얘네들 좋으세.
And we can lay down on our back, push up our legs.
아직 그것이 제가 두 전에 간제 곰잡 삼노땅 대치 연구해서래. 야 조금 짜자 제자나야 가도 샘데 투르거든. 소 야보 자마시나.
So we have to really meditate regularly and repeat our practices. But then sometimes if you merely rely on analytical meditation, it also sometimes it creates some kind of disturbances.
그래 타 맞춰도 용도 왔어.
로.
타 제마타와도 레기도 와.
제고 망다나?
제고 망다나?
So when we rely too much on analytical meditation, sometimes our conclusion wouldn't be very clear.
지금 전에 맞잖아요. 땜보요 말했어.
But if you don't do an analytical meditation, your logics and the reasons not stable.
그 대리치기 나왔지. 아니 사님이 지금 말하는 알레 데면서 파두도 그래.
When you don't rely on analytical meditation, you become unstable. For example, first you hear something from a person, you think that's true. Next, somebody say, well, that's not true. It should be that way. And then you change your mind. So you become unsteady. So not the disturbances. When you, yes.
Are you okay? Okay, like that. Any other questions? Yes.
I just wanted to say, Geshe-la, it is so true what you said. Like the first step is the most difficult, trying to see everybody in an unbiased way as your mother. I think I just get stuck there.
야, 대천아 대타래 대행원에 정해래. 제가 담보배나 아니 가래 안 봐야 되는 갈로.
일인 차단 매봐.
아, 네네네. 제가 다두 가르쳤나. 다 당겨 가도 지금 봐. 다 당겨 쉬어 다 텔 하트 캠도 가지. 아니 단대 소소가 다 단대 채널 사람들 다 개왕 하시들 something 대야소래스.
And for, I think, our purposes, if we think about, the concept about the rebirth, that's a very effective way of generating.
미카젤 개왕 하시 사람들 다 뺏갈래도 다 대체는 용문도 대체는 가 캔래요 되는 가 답도 없는데라도 다 대 개왕 하시 뭐 캔래 그 고원 했나? 개왕 하시고나 지난 사람들 다 뺀지와도 그래.
if you're able to establish the concept about rebirth, then it will be much easier for you to create equanimity among all the sentient beings. I hear sometimes that certain people are really, for them it's not possible to believe and follow the concept about rebirth. They say, I really couldn't think beyond this life.
제가 돈소랑 가서 답변하다 다 소소라 까지 제쇼 뭐지 가와도스 다 대상 땅고 그랬던 것도 나고요.
For those who had a challenge in following the concept about rebirth, then maybe relying on the reason about the kindness, that all the sentient beings are equally kind to me. Thinking that kind of logic is more powerful for these people.
제가 다 제왕하시 켈랭이지만 다 세인데 다 아마데 까지 첨부에 소소 켈랭게 소소 냠냠나 여러 봤어. 다 소소치는 대화시 명예에 받는 조지 대 미지오 받지. 다 조지 저랑 아마 제 녀버에 받는 당아도 가시라요 봤어. 내가도 타치도 말해. George, are you my mom?
So, people who are able to understand the concept about rebirth, and then relying on that concept and think about all sentient beings as your mother is much more powerful. Then again, it's really hard. For example, if you say it's not your mother in the past life, and you will say, I don't know.
제 장아 도체가 가지고 아니 마체 녀와도 마체 완전히 제 녀와데 되제 마제 매와데 내 하모고 사람지 코드제 요 말했어.
And so when you think about sentient beings who have been your mother and who haven't been your mother, there are more possibilities that the sentient beings have been your mother.
가르에서나 마지 나 괜히 많이 고르 봤어.
This is because you need a mother. Once you take a birth in the womb, you need a mother.
제 장아 다 제나 아니 제가 제왕 아마디 마술서 나가도 사마 먹어. 제다 단단하도 샘제라 잠깐을 잡으라 요지. 다 제발아야나 지금 미신도 이게 그 마치 땅에 오는 가래. 대마에다 고강가 레든 잡아도 도와서 간제 마지도 고래. 마지 고에다 다 말 잠깐 요사 말에스 다 마수하고 뭐 다들 마이 exception 야쇼레스 된데글로지 제고다.
So once you believe in a concept about rebirth, and every time you take a birth, especially birth through womb, and you need a mother, and since you have taken birth for so many times, you needed so many mothers in your previous life. And therefore, through that way, you make the kind of a generalized conclusion that all sentient beings are my mother because I took an unlimited amount of birth, and when I take a birth, I need a mother.
근데 mother 요바 켈레 토바이나 다 텐데가 아마디 갈라 텐데 가르쳐 왔나지 아마지 코조 셴바데오 아마 마지막깔라 아마 지가 가르쳐 모레 스테로기 파파 레토
Once you're able to establish that all sentient beings are your mother because you took birth and rely on these mothers, and then what you need to do is to think about how kind, how much trouble the current mother in this life went through for you, and then think about how kind, because of all this trouble that they go through for you, that they're incredibly kind to you. And then you can apply this to all the mothers in your previous lifetime that like your current mother, that she went over so many troubles for you. All other sentient beings in your previous lifetime did exactly the same thing.
제가 다 로도 장고다 로 장다도 장고다 로를 장고도 곰니 안에 잡 아무번에 제곰체 아무 제곰체 아니 조금체 그래.
So this is how we train our mind, and we have to really do this repeatedly. You have to repeat this exercise. Initially, you rely on analytical meditation, such as the one we just talked about.
다 제왕하셔 주세 드비아가 아니 페나 다 중요하셔데 남들 내가 이번에 좀 그랬어.
The best treatise, the teachings about establishing the concept about rebirth is mentioned in the Tsemanamde, right?
라트만남데.
In the second chapter, the Lobin Chudarbe.
Pramanavartika?
Yeah, Pramanavartika.
By Dharmakirti? Yes. Second chapter.
But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think
Yes.
I think I think it's easier for me to think about, being my mother. But then, the obstacle, then the resistance is that, but in this life, they're not kind to me.
그래서
Not everybody is kind.
But yes, the some dande di simje thamje rang gadin chimre is some dambe gabya. Simje tham rang gadin chim marwa. This is not quite good.
근데 수 가르쳐 말았어.
And who's not kind to you? Do you mind?
People who are not nice to me
The sosoya jigi
or
yaw
who want to harm you.
소설 연료비견이야도 랑니를 gadin chim mares.
오늘 전에 때까지 제조도 차대 그래서.
But in reality, the people who are not kind to you are the most kind to you.
저런 게 텔레드는 저와 공부 그래서.
Because of their, mistreatment, you have an opportunity to practice patience.
근데 그 성우도 와. 저런 게 있다나 저번 냠는데 개gel할 때는 용거 말했어. 파말 때는 용거 말했어. 술 때는 용거래. 저런 코로나게 되는 용거를 성우도 와.
As His Holiness mentioned very clearly, your practice of a patient wouldn't come from your teacher, wouldn't come from your lover and from your parents, but your so-called enemy.
제상은 다들 가도 대삼 따도 뭐 당가도 삼아 집발 가도 삼 따도 말했을 때.
Yeah, we all sin. It's not easy to think that way, right?
다 대삼 따다 셴바지. 대삼 따다 페나 미치게 지나라 내가 지나 가지. 대체와도 그 삼순에 담보파지 고째데 데리땅에 스네라 콘노와 찍고 삼고요 말했어. 나 고향 유모 두성이 야와도 저 직찬에 고대 용어를.
When someone harmed you, and I think this meditation may be helpful for you, Sneha. The person, the harm giver, had no intention or free, agent to harm you. I don't think the person really have this incredibly controlled intention to harm you, but rather the person did so under the influence of affliction. So the person is not a free agent, but it's really under the influence of something else, affliction, and therefore this is how it happened.
다 원래 대임에 진짜 가르쳤나 때는 안 주고 배나 미셔봐 코로나뇨 저도 라뇨죠 라뇨에.
This is because I'm sure we or you have caused frustrations to others, right?
이나 전화가 담보 끊어 다 드링에 코로나고 삼 끊어치는 요 말에.
When you did so, you didn't have really this deliberate intention to do that.
오케이. 그 다시 담보 자세 자요 말. 다 되네 그 테마치니 숨지되는 용어 쓰기로 왔어.
So initially, I don't think you will have this deliberate intention to harm or create anger and provoke others. Maybe, second, third time, maybe. Right from the beginning, I don't think you will have this intention to provoke others.
제가 담보 소속을 맨날 계제 세다. 아무나 남주 된다. and 지 제단 그 잔이 미파줘도 고 세마 만들어서 콜 세마 넣어서 말어. 소소로 그런 거 말을. 대도 집안 가도 틀에 다 하는 거야, 이제.
So, like sometimes, because of how we, look at them, how certain of our behavior, triggers, a frustration in others. But although we didn't have the intention to do so, but that, become the causes for others to get angry at us.
Okay? Any other question? If you don't have question, yeah, get in the
그래서 계실라 단다 먼저 닝지인데 세관berg야 계실라 단도 숨도 배편도 연구도 다 이내에 단다 최고 닝지 닝지 최초의 닝지 아니 먼저 닝지 수행 줘 봐. 미군 매번 닝지도 관berg야 심지어 탐지 정신을 마주인 심지어 닝지도 정신을 마주에 관해 숙체 깨고래. 심지어 탐지 정신을 마주자 또 컨트롤 시스템도 뭐
이게 숙제자 거래. 이게 시장 깨는 이게 숙제자 거래.
정신을 마주에 심지어 탐지 닝체다 네가 동해가 냥대샤 삼제.
마다 간조 시다 샘제도 라지 마트바인바 아니 땅도 근데 롤 깨그러 와스 샘제도 라지 마트바 임바 옛나야 아니 참에가 라지 트바 대차체다 뭐 샤와도 저네 대차체다 저네 노르데샤 스타도 니제 두삼고다
디케스 주면서 제시에 연결시켜서 혼자
롤 다 되네요 다 고도 노르데샤스 고도군에 테마 고도 노르데샤스 제가 아니 고도 노르데 단데 만화와 당가라가 제고군도 섬때네요
I had a question for Geshe regarding meditation of great compassion, the three types of the great compassion, and the final one, objectless, and compassion at objectless sentient beings. So my question to Geshe was that when we meditate on this, emptiness and the compassion on these people, that the sentient beings are not intrinsic nature, and then we apply our compassion. I said, how do we apply that? And Geshe made it very clear this time. The focus of the meditation is still on compassion. And then we establish that compassion by thinking these sentient beings are devoid of intrinsic nature. Yet they do not realize that. As a result, they're suffering. And for that reason, we practice compassion. That's what that's every shoot.
다는 줄라면 이제나 다 못아봐라. 아니 샘제samata tanzji 샘제samata tanzji 장와되지 tanz 장자가 장와잖아 못아봐 라제임바 근데 징저와 션저와 매저와 하모고지 tanzji 장와되네 야 누구들이 냥간도 다도 니제 섬든지가 못아봐 쟤네 아니 양고 줄라면 이제스
당원에 신에 다서 차서 likewise the great compassion, the second type, which is aimed at a phenomena. Do you remember? That is because all the sentient beings, they suffer from nature of impermanence. They suffer from this constant change, right? So they're under the influence of change. Yet they, because of that, they experience incredible suffering. Because, when you go through a lot of change, you go through a lot of suffering. And for that reason, you generate compassion in the nature of their influences, like they suffer poor sentient beings because they go through so many changing, unstable conditions. And by thinking this nature of the change, you generate compassion. So that's how you practice compassion in regard to the second type of great compassion.
아니 다다 샘제점을 멤버스에 되고 마타바다 다음에 된데가 소소 된데가 남바케가 마셔왔지. 다시 전다 샘제 동아지 양서들이 소선 돈에 동아다 참가나 제공도 선별로 되지.
And then exactly the same thing for the first type of great compassion. It's we don't think about the nature of impermanence and devoid of intrinsic nature, but we think simply the suffering. These sentient beings go through so many suffering, and thinking and reflecting on the nature of the suffering, we generate compassion to them. So in essence, when you practice this great compassion in regards with the three types, the importance is still on generating compassion and using these, like a nature of impermanent suffering and lack of intrinsic nature become the reason you feel compassion. 오늘 닝지도 배슉 첨부쳐도와.
라라라.
바버릉신, 남해별릉신, 동해릉신 삼단지 단 닝지 슉 첨부게요.
제가 가도 동아 영화때 아니 지금 무연에서 가면 다 먹어봤지 동아 영화 봐서 무연에서 내려셔서 얘나 코도 때하 먹었지 다 코는 영가도 섬나 코 이제도 야슈 쳇동 팽그로.
So the reason we experience suffering is because we are not clear about the reality. But once you're clear about the reality, and then it will help us to find a solution. And therefore, these sentient beings, they do not realize what is the actual, the true nature. As a result, they're confused and they go through suffering.
제가 미치게 보나 내가 레카지 제거나 다 나도 통하지 코피게 노르데와 하고 왔지나 그 노르조다 따다 인선 어떻게 되요나 만도 이제 코 노르데잖데 말했어 내내레스 코 바로 받잖아 아니 코 자야 본체로 와.
So like a person, that person is making repeated errors and a mistake, and as a result, experience suffering. And without realizing it. But then we go there and it shows that person saying, hey, this is wrong. You should be doing like this way. And when we're able to teach him the proper way to deal with that, and through that action, it will help to stop the suffering that the person is experiencing because of his or her confusion.
Okay.
So helpful, Geshe-la. Thank you so much.
I hope you guys been.
And Tenzin-la, thank you also so much for your
Thank you
wonderful
for giving me this
presentation.
wonderful opportunity to really learn from Geshe. As I said, I'm going to repeat this again. This is the only type of teaching method that you really find from Geshe Tenley. You know, there's so many teachings available from many great teachers, right? And it's very traditional approach where you go through the text, straight to text. You teach from the verses, you commentary, limiting to this text, and then you go home, put the book away, and enjoy your music. But Geshe-la's teaching, there is this tradition. It's called experiential teaching, where the teachers really show through the experiences, and where you put this into action meditation. And this is really now dying method. It's, especially I've been doing research about this type of teaching, and for the Ngendebas, this tradition is really extending now.
Thank you, Tenzin-la. You give me a lot of credits. I don't have any experience. Just I don't know how to teaching for the text to text. Then I just do like that.
And traditionally, this type of teaching, I think, really flourished in 13th, 14th, 15th, 17th century. Then it declined, and now it's almost it's like no longer available. It's called Nyingyu, ear to ear, Nyingyu, whispering through the ears. You don't rely on text. The teacher directly put this teaching into your ears, and you practice. Then you show him the result.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think from the side of the student, at least from my side, I can feel the difference.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, this is some when I talk explain the text, some are not from the text. I just met.
So this is the only teaching that I really wait for.
Therefore, you guys also read that something. His own teachings, especially he give the how's the teaching for Western people, especially for the public talks. They're much easy. If you read his only teaching like Lamrim teachings, then you have no idea what he talking about, because he's teaching for all the monks. They're already scholar. He teaches also a scholar way. He come to Western way, then lay people also he teaching different way. A lot of people also doesn't understand. He's only teaching that everything they think same. It's not same. You really check. He have so many different ways of teaching. He go to kids like 21st century. He also teaching for their mind. Therefore, like for us Westerns, also you can who he gives teaching for the like public. Those more easy. Then he go to teaching Sarah, Garden Depu. Then he just go to the all different views. Then we have no idea. Okay, thank you, Tenzin-la. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Very great.
Thank you.
Honor to see all of you. Wonderful. I hope you guys do a little bit more meditation.